Good afternoon, everyone from the European Parliament. We are here today to meet historian, author, and genealogist Miss Jeannie Milgram, together with Rabbi Avi Tawil, director of European Jewish Community Center. A famous Irish philosopher named Edmund Burke has once said, "Those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it." In a time in which antisemitism is in every mouth, press article and government preoccupations, it is our duty to recognize that this disease is way older than one can imagine. Indeed, Jews in 1492 in Spain and later Portugal were forced to convert or leave their country. The families who stayed and kept their identity hidden for centuries are called today the crypto-Jews. 500 years later, Jeannie Milgram has been going full circle with her history. She was born in Havana, Cuba, into a Roman Catholic family of Spanish ancestry. In an unparalleled work of genealogy, she was able to successfully prove that her family has been converso Jews from before the Spanish Inquisition. Today, Jeannie is the famous writer of 3 books and the reference of so many people in search of their identity. Before I give the floor to Jeannie, I would like to introduce Rabbi Avi Tawil, director of the European Jewish Community Center, who has made today's interview possible. Thank you, Avi, and you have the floor.
First of all, Mrs. Manescu, thank you very much for welcoming us here in the European Parliament. Jenny, we spent a great weekend with you. You inspired us all. And tonight you are presenting your book at the Cervantes Institute. And it's very apropos of this event because this week we are celebrating the Jewish holiday of nature, Tu B'Shvat, where we traditionally plant trees. And it is said that men are like the trees in the field. We have branches, we have fruits, and we also have roots. And here, Jenny is coming to Brussels this week to talk about our roots, discovering the diversity of our history and uncovering for us a whole new layer that is unknown to so many people. So, Jenny, please, would you share with us your story?
Sure, absolutely. It's a big honor to be here today. I thank you so much for this opportunity and this platform to be able to tell my story, which is actually the story of tens of thousands around the world. I was born in Havana to a Roman Catholic family and raised as a young Catholic girl, Catholic schools all the way through university, but always feeling a very strong affinity towards the Jewish people. And finally, my grandmother, leaving a lot of different clues, who was from Spain, she was teaching me what she told me were Spanish traditions, and I only realized much, much later that these were Jewish traditions that were being passed down to me. Of her 5 grandchildren, she chose me, and I guess with the affinity towards the Jewish people, my grandmother chose me to pass the Jewish traditions too. When my grandmother died, I was given a couple of pieces of jewelry, a Star of David earrings and a Hand of God, in a pendant, Hand of God. And because of the strong affinity I had for the Jewish people and for Judaism, I started to research my genealogy, because it could not have been a coincidence that on her deathbed, she would pass over to me, and only to me, this Jewish symbolic jewelry. So my grandfather had made a family tree going back to the 1700s, and I took the tree and I went to Spain and hired genealogists and went myself and started digging back, and we believe that in traditional Judaism, the Jewish lineage comes only through the mother. It doesn't come through the father. So I had to locate all the grandmothers in a row going back until I found a Jewish one. Now, this wasn't simple because there's no more cemeteries. There's no Jewish documents. We're talking not only that it's 523 years later, we're also talking about the fact that all of that was destroyed in 1492. So how does someone come in 2019 and go back and find a unbroken maternal lineage? Because also it's a matter of luck. If any one of those grandmothers had died without giving birth to a daughter, then how do you continue back? So I was able to continue back pretty easily through the Catholic archives in Spain. I was able to collect every single birth record, every single death record, every single marriage record going back for 500 years until 1545. When I got to 1545, I hit a brick wall because the church records ended. The Catholic Church had standardized their records in 1545 with the Council of Trent. Before that, they were written in books in the church registers. And I still had not found my Jewish grandmother. So I had to go back and start looking at big bound books, find the records. I had to go into the files in Spain and Portugal, into the boxes that had the judgments that were done in the Inquisition, until I was able to locate my Jewish ancestors, which brought me a lot of joy. I am very proud to have returned to my ancestors, and I found 22 grandmothers in a row going back to 1405, pre-Inquisition Spain and Portugal. So I was feeling let's say I was feeling their pain. I was feeling that, seeing their Inquisition records. 40 of the relatives on my direct maternal tree were burned or judged in a very harsh way during the Inquisition. And it's interesting how they talk about genetic memory. I must have had genetic memory to just feel this to begin with. But interestingly enough, I have an unreal fear of fire. So knowing that I had so many of the aunts and grandmothers that died in the fires of the Inquisition, and having a fear of fire so strong 500 years later is just something that really tells us about genetic memory. But what I was able to do was recuperate the cultural heritage of my own family. I was able to see what they did for a living. I was able to see how they made their place from place to place. They pretended to be Catholics, and underground, they were practicing their Judaism. And they were being caught. And this is why they were moving from place to place. Sometime about 1725, they integrated fully into the Catholic population. And I know this because they stopped being caught. So in that moment, they were fully Catholic. And they went from being fully Catholic, but keeping these customs that were passed to me by my grandmother. And they were fully Catholic until it came to me. And for some reason, in this point in time, there are so many people that are trying to return to their roots, look for their genealogy, and move forward and just recuperate. And here, it's about recuperating your past. Because, like with my children, how do I give them a future if I don't teach them about their past? And it's not just the quote you made that we are destined to repeat history, but we have to give our children something. We teach them to be good people, we teach them so much, but we have to give our children their past, because that gives you a sense of whole. And I know the names of my 22 grandmothers, and many times when I light my candles on Friday night, I see all these little women in my head standing around me. I don't know why. They're all little and they're all wearing black, but they're all standing around me on Friday nights when I light my candles. So it has been for me a total recuperation of memory.
And in the past, the homogeneity that was needed to make a strong identity for a country, it was believed that it had to be also homogeneity of religion and homogeneity of ideas. Today we are in a Europe that celebrates diversity. Mrs. Manescu herself participates in the intercultural dialogue group of the EPP, where they embrace diversity, and as today you give place for groups and for everyone to celebrate their identity. So tell me, if a family, myself, for example, I am also from Sephardic origins. So anyone who is interested to find out about their past, can they have access to these files?
Yes, but the access is difficult. The access to be able to, well, your family was always Jewish, so correct? They didn't have to pass the,
That's what they told me.
Yes, that's what they told you. So they didn't have to pass this long voyage that I had to pass. Because at the time of the expulsion, historians pretty much agree that there were 300,000 Jews in the Iberian Peninsula. Of those, 100,000 left for the Ottoman Empire, which is where your family probably comes from, correct? And then 100,000 stayed and became practicing Jews underground, where my family came from, and 100,000 were lost. So basically, if you want to find your ancestry, and I get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of emails from people around the world looking for their ancestry, and you literally can do a little bit online, and then you have to go into Spain and Portugal. You have to go into the archives, and for the most part, especially in Spain, the Inquisition documents are not digitized. So you have to go in there. They are court cases, and the Inquisition did genealogies on all of the families. It's about 8-9 pages of genealogies inside. They would, your parents, your grandparents, your aunt and your uncle, everything is recorded there.
So you're doing work of digitalization of these files, correct?
I have been trying to get these files digitized in the different locations around the world: Spain, Portugal, Canary Islands, they are in Goa, India, wherever there was an Inquisition tribunal, Mexico City, Lima, Peru, Cartagena, Colombia. And I have dedicated myself to spearheading a project to digitize. And luckily, I have an organization, a DNA company, MyHeritage, an international firm, who has given over full support to give the funding for the digitization of the files. But we have reached roadblocks because it's not so easy, not in Spain, and it's less easy in Portugal. They just, they understand they have the files, and if you go there from wherever, they'll let you see the files. But my goodness, try to get them to hand them over for digitization, and it's almost like the directors don't want it to be under their watch. So we are trying very hard. I've been in the Spanish files. Finally, I have a contract out of the Spanish files, out of the Spanish archives, but I'm struggling. There's so much red tape. And it's like they're giving you the files and like hanging on to them. So this is what I'm trying to do. In my lifetime, I would like to see everything digitized.
You know, this is the year in the European Union, the Commission announced it as the year for cultural heritage, restoration of cultural heritage. And I believe part of it should be the restoration of these files, that it will give a sense of history to let so many Europeans and descendants of Europeans to discover their past.
It is so important because how are we going to recuperate our culture? I mean, I know what every single family member did for a living, but it took me 15 years. It took a lot of money to be traveling into the archives, and I would like to see people, whether they are in Peru or they're in Bolivia or they're in the Philippines, that they can just go online, and this is so important. And, you know, I really thank MyHeritage for being a world leader in this, because they came forward and said, we stand by your side.
So thank you for coming here to European Parliament to raise awareness of this very, very important work. And I hope here, you know, European institutions, they will support this work And I thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much once again. I think your work is amazing. It's so important, and it gives hope to all the Jews around the world that lost their
way.
connection with the past. So your work is really needed by many people, not only from Spain and Portugal. And as Avi mentioned tonight, you are most welcome, and everybody is looking forward to your speech at the Cervantes Institute here in Brussels.
Very excited.
Glad to meet you.
Thank
and
you.
All the
Thank
best
you so much. It was
work.
my pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.